I'm bankrupt. The single message glowed starkly on her phone screen. Sent. Sarah stared blankly into the cavernous space of her warehouse, the air thick with the scent of cardboard and dust. Towers of unsold inventory loomed around her, mostly food products nearing their expiration dates. Mountains of pasta, canned goods, imported snacks. A monument to her failed ambition. How had it come to this? What was she supposed to do with it all? A notification chimed, sharp and unwelcome. A reply from her boyfriend, no, her ex-boyfriend now. We should break up. Sarah froze, the phone suddenly feeling heavy in her hand. 3 years. 3 years of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and future plans dissolved in 5 cold words. Couldn't be that easy, could it? Before conscious thought caught up, her fingers were already dialing his number. Ring, ring, click. He'd hung up. A knot tightened in her stomach. Undeterred, fueled by a desperate disbelief, she dialed again. Seriously, haven't you had enough? A sickeningly sweet female voice answered this time, laced with undisguised impatience. A pause, then, closer to the receiver, came Alex's familiar voice. Ignore her, babe. Let's get back to it. The line went dead. Sarah stared at the black screen, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, followed quickly by another. The dam broke and hot, stinging tears blurred her vision. She had pursued Alex relentlessly back in university, back when her family's fortune was intact, showering him with gifts, flowers, gadgets, anything his heart desired, treating money like confetti. After they got together, she'd walked on eggshells, showering him with affection, terrified that one wrong word, one flicker of displeasure would make him leave. Then her family's business collapsed. Left with a substantial inheritance she didn't know how to manage, it was Alex who had suggested she start her own business. His unwavering support then had felt like a lifeline. He hadn't abandoned her. She'd foolishly thought herself the luckiest person alive. She'd even converted the entire second floor of her spacious family home into this warehouse to save on rental costs, ignoring the way it swallowed the warmth of the place. Looking back now, the entire relationship felt like a cruel joke, a carefully constructed illusion she desperately wanted to believe. Steeling herself, swallowing the lump in her throat, she dialed his number one last time. Sarah, have some dignity, Alex answered this time, his voice sharp with annoyance. We broke up. Can't you just accept it gracefully? Could you? Could you please return the $2,000 you borrowed from me? Her voice was barely a whisper, thick with unshed tears. A raucous male voice cut in from the background. Yo, Alex, borrowing cash from your ex? Now that you're moving up, better pay the lady back, huh? Laughter followed, then the sweet, irritated voice from before, questioning him. Fine. I'll send it right now. Alex snapped, clearly embarrassed and furious. It's pathetic you even need to ask for such a small amount back. Muffled sounds drifted through the line. Something about ordering water, someone else saying, playing games, Alex, you devil. Before Sarah could ask what was happening, Alex spat out a final, hurried insult, considerate charity for a beggar, and hung up. Numbly, Sarah walked downstairs, pausing before the only full-length mirror in the house. She forced herself to truly look at her reflection. Her face was ordinary, perhaps leaning towards plain, though Alex had occasionally called her cute during the hazy, early days of their relationship. Her figure was average, small bust, short legs, her only redeeming quality being that she weighed just under 100 pounds. Her personality, mostly unremarkable, punctuated by occasional flashes of temper, evidenced by the shattered remains of her previous phone lying somewhere amidst the boxes upstairs. The sharp, insistent ringing of the doorbell jolted her from her self-assessment. She unlocked the main door, then wrestled with the heavy-duty security door she'd installed after turning the house into a warehouse. Alex had mocked her for it, called her paranoid. Outside stood several delivery men, eyeing her as if she were utterly insane. Miss Sarah? Your order of 120 barrels of water. She could almost picture Alex placing the order, a malicious smirk playing on his lips. A final petty act of cruelty. Just bring them inside, please, she murmured, her voice soft, constitutionally incapable of harshness towards strangers. It took ages, a clumsy ballet of maneuvering heavy plastic barrels through doorways and into the already cluttered ground floor. After thanking the weary delivery men, Sarah locked both doors, the deadbolt clicking shut with a heavy finality. The weight of it all, the bankruptcy, the breakup, the betrayal, the absurd water delivery, crashed down on her. She sank onto the bottom stair and let herself cry long and hard, until her throat was raw and her eyes burned. She cried until late into the night, exhaustion finally giving way to hunger. Dragging herself up, she went to the kitchen. Cooking had always been her true passion, not business. Her food was genuinely delicious. It was probably one of the few real reasons Alex had stayed with her for 3 years. Knock, knock, knock. A sharp rapping at the door. A flicker of irrational hope sparked in her chest. Could it be Alex regretting his actions? She rushed to the door, her heart pounding, only to feel a wave of disappointment wash over her as she saw who stood there. It was Leo, her childhood best friend, leaning against the doorframe, one eyebrow arched in amusement. "Congratulations," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "You're finally single." Her nose was still red and swollen from crying. Sniffling, she asked in a raspy voice, "How did you know?" "The jerk posted it on social media, Sarah." "The whole world knows," Leo scoffed, peering past her into the house. "I rushed right over to see if you'd cried yourself into dehydration." "Whoa." His eyes widened at the sea of water barrels. "Don't tell me these are all your tears." "He owed me money," she mumbled. "This was his way of paying me back. Saying your youth was wasted on a dog would be an insult to dogs." Leo rolled his eyes dramatically, squeezing past her. "Something smells amazing. Gotta grab a bite." "No way. There's barely enough for me," Sarah yelped, lunging protectively towards her plate. The intended pity party devolved into a familiar, chaotic scramble for food, two hungry wolves wrestling over the last scraps. Exhausted from the emotional roller coaster in their playful fight, they eventually collapsed onto the sofa, just like they used to as kids, and drifted off to sleep. "Ayaha!" A blood-curdling scream shattered the fragile peace of the night, jolting Sarah awake. "Help me!" She blinked groggily, her heart pounding. Leo was already on his feet, alert. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "Of course I heard it. I'm not deaf." "Sounded like someone was being murdered," Leo retorted, his usual sarcastic bite returning. "Don't worry, you go back to sleep. I'll check it out." He was always like that, masking concern with bravado. He slipped out the front door, disappearing into the pre-dawn gloom. He was gone for barely 10 minutes but returned in a frantic sprint, slamming and locking the security door behind him. His clothes were torn, smeared with something dark, and he was breathing heavily. "Holy crap," he gasped, leaning against the door. "What the hell is going on out there?" I almost got bitten." Sarah, still half asleep, initially thought he meant stray dogs. "It's okay," she mumbled drowsily. "Worst case, I'll go with you to get a rabies shot." It was an old inside joke between them from childhood, when she'd been too scared to pet dogs and he'd offered the same reassurance. But Leo didn't laugh his usual carefree laugh. He checked the security door again, pushing against it to ensure it was secure, then double-checked the inner door lock. His face was pale, his eyes wide with something more profound than fear. "No, Sarah," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "This isn't rabies. Come here. Look." He led her to the window, his hand trembling slightly as he pulled back the heavy curtain. The sky outside wasn't its usual pre-dawn gray. It was stained a sickly dark red, as if foreshadowing some terrible event. The air hung thick and hazy, visibility limited. Through the gloom, Sarah could make out several figures shuffling unnaturally through the community garden below. One figure suddenly snapped its head up, its gaze locking onto hers. Its eyes bulged, milky white, devoid of pupils. Dry blood caked its face, blue veins pulsing grotesquely beneath translucent skin. It clutched a severed arm, gnawing on it ravenously. Sarah felt a wave of nausea as she recognized the uniform. It was Mr. Henderson, the kindly old security guard from the front gate. Her stomach churned violently. She yanked the curtain shut, leaning against the wall, trying to catch her breath. What are those things?" Leo was already scrolling frantically through his phone, his face grim. News alerts. Corpse transformation. Unknown origin. Government warning citizens to stay indoors. He looked up, his expression bleak. "Stay indoors? How the hell are we supposed to do that? We either starve or they starve. And who knows if things like that can even starve?" His gaze fell upon the ridiculous collection of water barrels cluttering the living room. "Well," he muttered, a grimace twisting into something resembling a wry smile, "at least we won't die of thirst." "Unbelievable, we Actually have to thank that scumbag Alex. He straightened up, a spark of determination in his eyes. The outbreak just started, maybe there aren't too many of them yet. I should go out, try to scavenge some more supplies. I don't think we'll starve, Leo, Sarah said quietly, gesturing towards the stairs. Come with me. She led him up to the second floor, unlocking the door to the converted warehouse space. Leo stopped dead in the doorway, his eyes widening in disbelief. Racks upon racks stretched before them, piled high with boxes and crates. Food, toiletries, batteries, first aid kits, enough. Supplies to stock a small supermarket. Whoa, he breathed, stepping inside, turning in a slow circle. Sarah, you're some kind of prophet. How did you know zombies were coming? Wait a minute. He took a sudden step back, pointing an accusatory finger. Were you behind this? Are you the evil mastermind? No, wait, you're too timid for that. Did someone trick you into hoarding all this? Actually, that's kind of cool. Why didn't you include me in your evil plan? What are you talking about? Sarah snapped, swatting his hand away, though his ridiculous theories momentarily eased the tension. I told you I went bankrupt. I knew that investment was shady. How long has it been? All that money gone just like that? It had to be that jerk Alex manipulating you, didn't you? Leo stopped mid-rant, his eyes fixing on the stacks of merchandise again. He blinked slowly. Wait. These supplies, this isn't just random stuff, is it? This is. Yes, Sarah admitted quietly, shoulders slumping. It's the inventory. From the business. A large supermarket chain went under, and I bought their liquidation stock cheap. It's all here. She braced herself for the lecture she knew was coming. Leo walked forward slowly, running his hand over boxes of fresh pasta, crates of canned vegetables, shrink-wrapped packs of various meats, frozen seafood, cartons of milk, instant noodles. Everything imaginable. He turned back to her, his eyes sparkling with a sudden manic glee. Marry me, rich woman, he declared dramatically, dropping to one knee amidst the boxes. I don't want to struggle anymore. Huh. Sarah stared at him, utterly bewildered. The television, miraculously still broadcasting, became their lifeline and their tormentor. News anchors with strained smiles urged calm, speaking of containment efforts and imminent military aid. But the reality seeping through online channels and frantic word of mouth painted a far darker picture. Experts debated the mysterious virus, offering no solutions, only mounting confusion. Wild theories proliferated online, some absurd, like a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner's suggestion to drink concentrated salt water, which garnered bafflingly high approval. The number of infected, the changed, as the news tentatively called them, grew exponentially. They seemed tireless, roaming the streets day and night, their guttural moans a constant, chilling soundtrack to the unfolding nightmare. One afternoon, the facade of control shattered completely. During a live broadcast meant to reassure the public, one of the changed burst onto the set, lunging at the anchor. Minutes later, after agonizing convulsions, the anchor himself transformed, turning on the terrified crew. The feed cut abruptly, but the damage was done. Panic, raw and untamed, gripped the nation. Fear became the new currency. Look at this, Leo scoffed, scrolling through a news feed on his phone later that day. Major breakthrough. Experts confirm virus transmission pathway. Seriously? It took them this long to figure out you get infected if one of those things bites you? I knew that in elementary school from zombie movies. Thump, thump, or a heavy rhythmic banging vibrated through the front door, accompanied by inhuman groans. Roar, 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 is that all you know how to do? Leo yelled irritably towards the door. Try using your words, genius. Stop antagonizing them and give me a hand. Sarah called from the kitchen, juggling several pots simmering on the stove, her voice laced with exasperation. They had spent the entire previous day meticulously organizing the warehouse inventory, realizing much of the fresh food wouldn't last. Sarah had thrown herself into preserving it, turning meats into jerky, canning vegetables, anything to extend their shelf life. The house filled with the savory aroma of cooking food, a strangely comforting scent that warred with the horrifying sounds drifting in from outside. It felt almost cozy, if you ignored the end of the world happening beyond their reinforced door. Pass the salt, Sarah instructed, stirring a large pot. Leo put down his phone, rummaged in a cupboard, and tossed her a packet. You know, if you hadn't smashed your phone over that idiot Alex, we could be playing online games right now. Gaming? Seriously, Leo? You must be the only person thinking about games right now. Watch this pot, will you? Sarah didn't even turn around. Leo's phone pinged. Huh. Speak of the devil. It's a text from the scumbag king. He held up the screen. A message from Alex glowed there. Leo man, can you reach Sarah? Need to talk to her. Sarah had effectively cut ties with most of her old friends after getting serious with Alex. Still, the text message format suggested Alex wasn't expecting much. He hadn't even bothered to call. What do you want with her? Leo texted back curtly. His phone immediately rang. Leo, you can reach her, right? Put her on the phone. Sarah, startled, accidentally clanged the metal spoon against the side of the pot. Alex heard it. His voice instantly changed, becoming urgent, almost desperate. Sarah? Is that you? Sarah, I was wrong. I was an idiot, completely lost my mind. I love you. Breaking up was just a stupid joke. I sent the money back, didn't I? And the water and... Quite the calculation, Mr. Alex. Leo cut in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Those things are worth a fortune now, aren't they? You're Sarah's boyfriend. Oh wait, ex-boyfriend. So why are you calling me if you can't reach her? Without waiting for an answer, Leo decisively ended the call. Alex immediately called back. And again. And again. With a sigh of exasperation, Leo simply switched his phone off entirely. Great, he grumbled, pocketing the device. Now I can't even play games because of you. Wait a second. He peered at Sarah's face. What's with that look? Don't tell me you're actually feeling sorry for him? Are you kidding me? It's nothing, Sarah mumbled, turning back to the stove, furiously stirring the contents of the pot to hide the tears welling in her eyes. Just the steam. Forgot to turn on the extractor fan. Ah, Sarah. Leo watched her for a long moment, his usual teasing demeanor softening. He stepped up behind her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. Hey, it's okay to cry. It's just us here. You know. The dam broke again. Sarah leaned back against him, silent tears streaming down her face. After a moment, Leo ruined the mood in typical fashion. Ew, are you getting snot on my shirt? Gross. Get off. Sarah shoved him away, half laughing, half crying. Dinner that night was a feast. Grilled meat, pork and beef, marinated earlier, sizzled enticingly on the electric grill pan they'd unearthed. Hot oil dripped, spitting and flaring as it hit the heating element. The Maillard reaction worked its magic, filling the small kitchen space with the intoxicating aroma of rendered fat and browning meat. The moment a piece looked cooked through, Leo snatched it with his chopsticks, wrapped it expertly in a crisp lettuce leaf, and popped it into his mouth. The initial coolness of the lettuce gave way to the perfectly cooked, tender meat. Savory juices, infused with Sarah's secret marinade, exploded on his tongue. The crisp lettuce cut through the richness, leaving only pure, smoky, spicy deliciousness. This, Leo declared, taking a swig of juice between bites, his eyes already fixed on the next piece sizzling on the grill, is worth more than gold. Sarah ate a piece herself, closing her eyes in blissful satisfaction. As she reached for another slice, Leo's chopsticks darted out. Ah, fair maiden. Leave some meat for the weary warrior. He snatched the piece away with lightning speed. Exasperated, Sarah punched him lightly on the arm. With their abundant supplies, there was no need for rationing yet. They ate until they were stuffed, then collapsed onto the sofa, playing rock, paper, scissors to decide who had the unpleasant task of washing the greasy grill pan. You know, Sarah mused, staring idly at the ceiling. With all these supplies, maybe we should try to help other people? The ones who weren't prepared. Her mind drifted to survival novels she'd read, imagining encountering a heroic group, embarking on some grand adventure. A part of her still clung to the naive hope that this nightmare, like historical plagues, would soon be contained, that government rescue was truly on its way. Leo let out a cold laugh. Take a look outside your door, dreamer. See those dedicated fans of yours hanging around 24/7? The ones you're not even paying security fees to? You think they'll just let you waltz out with groceries for the neighbors? Maybe we could post a message online, coordinate. Click. Or silence. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died. The hum of the refrigerator ceased. The house plunged into darkness. Ah! Sarah shrieked, launching herself off the sofa and practically into Leo's lap with the speed of a startled cat. Instinctively, he caught her, holding her tight. They stared at each other in the sudden, oppressive darkness, eyes wide. Outside, the abrupt silence seemed to agitate the changed. The banging and groaning at the door intensified. What happened? Sarah's voice trembled violently against his chest. Leo's phone, lying beside him, emitted a faint ping as a notification illuminated the screen. Fumbling in the dark, he picked it up, squinting to read the urgent alert. Crap, he muttered, reading quickly. What kind of difficulty spike is this? Effective immediately. Intermittent citywide power outages. Expected. Full blackout projected within 10 days. Oh, and get this. Experts advise against using tap water. Potential contamination. Via virus transmission through water systems, including skin contact, under investigation. He glanced towards the stacks of water. Barrels Alex had inadvertently provided. Okay, Leo sighed. Maybe I won't curse him quite so much. Good thing I crashed here. I'm scared of the dark, Sarah whispered, her voice muffled against his shirt, tears pricking her eyes again. Damn it, Leo cursed softly under his breath, looking down at her clinging form. After a moment he sighed again. Okay. He switched on his phone's flashlight function, handing it to her. Hold this. I'll go upstairs and see if I can find any candles in that disaster zone you call a warehouse. Day 5 of the mass infection. For the few scattered survivors across the city, food reserves were dwindling. For most, drinkable water was gone. Desperation began to override fear. People started venturing out, searching for supplies, inevitably leading to a sharp increase in the number of infected. In country where private gun ownership was prohibited, citizens had few effective means of defense. The monumental task of eliminating the changed fell squarely on the shoulders of the overwhelmed military. Leo, buddy? Please, can I just have something hot to eat? Leo emerged from the bathroom for the 10th time that morning, clutching his stomach, his face pale and pained. Anticipating the inevitable power grid failure, Sarah had been frantically working for 2 days straight, processing the last of the perishable food into jerky or shelf-stable canned goods. Her single-minded focus meant no time for proper meals. Leo, utterly useless in the kitchen, had resorted to eating cold leftovers and was now paying the price. Sarah paused in her work, guilt washing over her. He was right. Preserving the food solved the storage problem, but heating it later without electricity, that was a challenge she hadn't fully considered. Their supplies, if carefully managed, could last them a year, maybe even 2. If rescue hadn't come by then, waiting wouldn't matter much anymore. Survival was likely, but comfortable survival? That was the real goal. If they were going to ride out the apocalypse, she wanted to do it with at least some basic comforts. Never mind. Leo waved a dismissive hand, seeing her troubled expression. You keep doing your thing. I'll find one of those self-heating hot pot things tonight. We can eat together when you're done. He shuffled away, muttering. Seriously, what kind of stomach do you have? Why are you perfectly fine? Sarah's eyes suddenly lit up. Self-heating. Of course. Chemical reactions. She could use exothermic reactions to heat food. Maybe even collect flammable gases somehow. And more importantly, she remembered something stored deep in the warehouse. Quicklime. When Sarah dragged out 2 large, heavy sacks of calcium oxide, Leo stared as if she conjured a dragon. Why on earth do you have this stuff lying around? Pest control. Moisture absorption, she explained simply. It was cheap. Donning thick gloves, she carefully mixed the quicklime with salt, wrapping small portions tightly in layers of sterile gauze. She placed the finished packets in a dry container to prevent premature activation. Simple, effective DIY heating packs. Knowledge really does change your destiny, Sarah sighed with satisfaction, surveying her handiwork. Okay, Professor, Leo quipped, watching her. What's next? Don't tell me you're planning sustainable agriculture and complete self-sufficiency. He watched in mock horror as Sarah's eyes lit up again. Actually, why didn't I think of that? We could set up a simple vertical farm experiment right here. She's lost it. Completely insane. The world has finally broken her, Leo muttered dramatically to himself. Kidding. Sarah laughed, grabbing one of the self-heating hot pots Leo had mentioned. It wouldn't work. Real vertical farms cost a fortune and need high-tech gear we definitely don't have. We'll just take it one step at a time. She began preparing the hot pot. No matter what happens, just having food to eat. That's already a blessing, isn't it? Miles away across the ravaged cityscape, An armored off-road vehicle sped through deserted streets. A horde of change shrieked and clawed in its wake. The driver swerved expertly, sending several creatures tumbling off the vehicle's sides. They hit the pavement with sickening crunches, bodies twisting into impossible angles, yet they scrabbled to rise again. One zombie, its flesh practically smeared across the asphalt after being run over, still reached out with desperate, decaying hands towards phantom prey. Their resilience was terrifying, their guttural cries echoing through the urban canyons. More change leaped from rooftops, piling onto the vehicle. The driver fought for control, weaving desperately until finally, with a deafening crash, the vehicle slammed into the side of a high-rise building. The change swarmed the wreckage excitedly. Faintly visible on the vehicle's battered side were two words: military unit. Thunder rumbled overhead, deep and ominous. The rain that had threatened for days finally began to fall, heavy drops splattering against the pavement, mingling with the blood. Day 10 of the mass infection. Though survivors hoarded what little they had, most were now out of food. Except for critical government facilities, hospitals, research labs, and military bases, all power to the city was cut. The military officially announced coordinated rescue operations. Behind closed doors, the government quietly signed protocols authorizing live human experimentation. On phones that still held a charge, desperate pleas for food appeared online. Exorbitant sums offered, yet met with silence. In a twisted way, the old slogans about money being worthless and all life being equal had finally horrifically come true. Thunder crashed outside, shaking the house. Rain lashed against the windows and sheets. Sarah and Leo lay fully clothed on the same bed. Since the power cuts began and Sarah confessed her intense fear of the dark, they'd shared the bed for safety and comfort. The old, peacetime notions of propriety seemed laughably irrelevant now. The storm raged, but even its fury couldn't completely drown out the relentless sounds from outside, the moaning chorus of the changed, occasionally punctuated by sharp human screams, or the terrified crying of a child. When a child's cry was abruptly silenced by a guttural roar, it signaled another life extinguished. Such grim dramas played out almost nightly. "Leo," Sarah whispered, staring up at the ceiling intermittently illuminated by flashes of lightning. Do you think we'll end up like them? Like those things outside?" Leo didn't answer immediately. "I wonder what it's really like out there," she continued, her voice trembling. "How bad has it gotten?" The more she thought, the more fear coiled in her stomach. Tears began to well up again. Sarah, listen to me." Leo's voice was quiet but firm. He didn't pull her into a hug this time, didn't offer his usual easy comfort. He waited until her quiet sobs began to subside. Then, as if making a vow, he said softly, "No matter what happens, if one of us gets infected, it'll be me first. If the food runs out, I'll go first. I will protect you. I will never betray you. Just try to rest. Wait for rescue. Okay?" His calm certainty settled over her, a strange anchor in the storm of her fear. "Besides," Leo added, his familiar sarcastic tone returning, a defense mechanism kicking back in, "what does it matter to you what's happening out there? Think about it. In the 3 years you were with that idiot Alex, you alienated or drifted away from almost all your old friends. Who else are you even worried about? Honestly, you should be more worried about yourself." "Who says I don't have friends?" Sarah retorted, momentarily forgetting her tears in her haste to defend herself. I still have you, don't I?" The fear receded, replaced by an overwhelming wave of exhaustion. Sarah mumbled a few more half-hearted arguments with Leo before sleep finally claimed her. Listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, Leo murmured softly into the darkness, "How am I supposed to leave you like this?" His voice was so low it was almost lost in the sound of the rain. Carefully, quietly, he slipped out of bed. He retrieved his phone, which he'd kept switched off for days to conserve the battery. He tried sending another distress signal to the military network. Silence. No response. As he scrolled idly, an obscure post on a forum caught his eye. The title screamed conspiracy. The truth behind the apocalypse. Zombie outbreak deliberately caused. The view count was low. He'd seen dozens of similar crackpot theories when the outbreak first started. Probably just clickbait. He was about to swipe past it, but something made him tap on the link. The author claimed to be a researcher from a prominent, unnamed laboratory. The post laid out a chillingly logical narrative, citing alleged internal documents as evidence. Their lab, experimenting with gene therapy and viral vectors, had accidentally created a zombie-like creature. They'd immediately classified the project, planning further secret research. But a catastrophic lapse in security, a bribed or careless guard, allowed the creature to escape, infecting a small local population. Faced with exposure, the lab reported it to local authorities. The government, fearing mass panic and social collapse, suppressed the information, secretly stockpiled resources, and began covertly detaining the infected and lab personnel. But the infection spread too quickly, too widely. As the situation spiraled out of control, officials resigned or were dismissed, and the truth or a version of it was finally leaked to the public. Now, all hope rested on the military and the remaining research institutions. The post ended on a desperate, chilling note. My supervisor initially told me this was a project for humanity's eternal happiness. If successful, it would revolutionize our very bloodline. Looking back, it was clearly a plan for human extinction. I am so sorry. Everyone, save yourselves if you can. Maybe, Leo thought grimly, with fewer people having working phones, government censorship had become lax, allowing such a message to slip through. Or maybe the lab itself wanted this out. What if the researchers were now trying to create even more terrifying creatures? Could they trust their fate to people who played God and failed so spectacularly? Day 30 of the mass infection. Miracles hadn't happened. Only a handful of people survived solely on their initial stockpiles. No saviors had emerged. Trust in the government, in neighbors, even in family, had eroded under the relentless pressure of fear and starvation. Humanity was becoming unrecognizable. The number of lucky few rescued by the military was dwarfed by those who died fighting over scraps of food. In this brutal new world, the ruthless often fared better than the kind. Leo, come quick. I think there's someone at the door. Don't be ridiculous, Sarah, Leo called back from the bedroom. You're getting cabin fever. Who could possibly be out there? Ask your zombie fan club camped outside if they'd allow visitors. No, really. I heard knocking earlier, very faint. I just looked through the peephole. There's definitely a man standing there. He looks normal. Not infected. But, Sarah hesitated. Leo emerged from the bedroom, pulling on a shirt. But what? The changed. They're still out there shuffling around, but they're completely ignoring him. It's like they can't even see him. Intrigued, Leo went to the door and peered through the peephole. She was right. A man stood on their doorstep. He calmly, deliberately knocked twice more. In this ravaged world, his politeness felt jarringly alien. Thinking back to the distress signal he'd sent days ago, and the forum post he'd read, a flicker of hope ignited within Leo. Could this be rescue? As if sensing his gaze, the man slowly tilted his head up, meeting Leo's eye through the tiny lens. Leo felt a sudden prickling chill, as if pinned by an unseen force. The man's lips moved silently. Leo strained to read them. Save me. Please kill me. Leo recoiled, his blood running cold. He repeated the words under his breath, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. Suddenly, the man's expression shifted. Something was horribly wrong with his eyes. Red veins rapidly spiderwebbed across the whites, thick and engorged, encroaching on the irises, constricting the pupils until they were mere pinpricks. Leo couldn't tear his gaze away, mesmerized and terrified. Was it a trick of the light? Or were those pulsing red veins actually glowing? It felt as though the eyes were swelling, filling his entire field of vision through the peephole, radiating a malevolent crimson light. Found you, the man murmured, his voice a low, soft sound that was somehow both excited and utterly weary. His gaze slowly drifted away from the peephole. With an unnerving, almost graceful movement, he resumed his gentle knocking. Don't open it, Sarah whispered urgently, sensing the shift in Leo. Even without seeing the man, her intuition screamed danger. She moved closer, grabbing Leo's arm. Something's wrong, Leo. Very wrong. Don't open the door. But Leo remained frozen, staring blankly at the door, seemingly deaf to her pleas. Leo. Sarah raised her voice, shaking his arm harder. He seemed lost, hypnotized. Then outside a new sound began, a distorted off-key singing. Little bunny, white and dear, open up the door, my dear. Quick now, don't delay, I want to come inside and play. The voice was dry, rasping, hideously out of tune. To Sarah it was just a terribly creepy song. But Leo seemed entranced. His eyes glazed over. His hand moved slowly, deliberately towards the deadbolt. Click. The sound of the lock disengaging echoed unnervingly loud in the tense silence. Just one more turn of the knob, and the door would be open. Disbelief warred with terror in Sarah's chest. Seeing Leo so utterly unlike himself ignited a surge of desperate courage. With a cry, she launched herself at him, using her momentum to tackle him away from the door. Leo crashed to the hard tile floor, his head hitting with a sickening thud. Sarah landed heavily beside him, pain shooting through her arms and legs as they slammed against the unyielding surface. Her ankle twisted sharply, sending waves of agony up her leg. Tears of pain and fear instantly filled her eyes. Ignoring the throbbing pain, she scrambled forward on her knees, reaching up with trembling hands to slam the deadbolt shut again. Using the doorknob for leverage, she hauled herself upright, then grabbed Leo under the arms, dragging him, limp and unresponsive, further away from the door. Only when they were several feet back did she collapse beside him, cradling his head. Her voice choked with sobs as she whispered his name over and over. Leo! Leo, wake up please. She felt herself teetering on the edge of hysteria. Hearing his name, combined with the sharp pain radiating from the back of his head, seemed to jolt Leo back to awareness. Well, what happened? He groaned, blinking dazedly. Just then, a horrifying symphony of wet-tearing sounds and guttural snarls erupted from just outside the door. One of the changed had apparently tried to attack the strange visitor. A long, ragged scream followed, abruptly cut short. Then came a sound that made their skin crawl. A rhythmic, wet crunching and chewing. Minutes later it stopped. Silence descended, thick and heavy. If anyone had been outside to witness it, they would have seen the strange man nonchalantly wiping his mouth. They would have seen the deep, bone-exposing gash on his arm, left by the zombie's claws, leaking not red but thick black ink like blood. He casually flicked his wrist, splattering the black blood onto another nearby changed. Where the droplets landed, flesh instantly sizzled and corroded, melting away like wax. Inside, Sarah and Leo huddled together, listening, hearts pounding, every second an eternity of terrifying anticipation. What kind of monster was out there? The gentle knocking resumed. Leo groaned, trying to sit up, but waves of dizziness forced him back down. Seeing Leo struggle, a strange calm settled over Sarah. It was the terrifying clarity that sometimes comes with absolute fear. She was just a recent graduate, her biggest life challenges until now being her parents' passing and this disastrous bankruptcy breakup combo. She had no combat training, no extraordinary strength. Her self-defense knowledge was geared towards muggers, not whatever that was. No one had ever prepared her for facing a monster at her door during the apocalypse. Fear was a rational response. She could not be afraid. But she pinched her trembling thigh hard. Gritting her teeth against the pain in her ankle, she pushed herself up. Adrenaline surged. She sprinted, limping heavily, into the kitchen, yanked the longest, sharpest knife from the block and raced back, positioning herself protectively in front of Leo. She faced the door, the knife held in a shaking grip. She knew it was futile, like holding a twig against a tidal wave. But it was better than facing the unknown empty-handed. Her strength was minuscule, but she had someone to protect. Outside, the man seemed to sense the shift within. His expression remained impassive, chillingly blank. He placed his hand flat against the reinforced steel security door. With a slow, deliberate twist of his wrist, a horrifying screech of twisting metal filled the air. Sarah's heart plummeted. She held her breath, her body trembling uncontrollably, eyes locked on the buckling door. The man's hand tightened. Then abruptly he stopped. A small circular light embedded in the collar around his neck flashed red. He instantly withdrew his hand, standing perfectly still, head slightly bowed, as if listening to a silent command. A moment later the red light went out. Without a backward glance, the man turned and walked away, his footsteps receding with mechanical precision. Sarah remained frozen in her defensive stance long after the footsteps faded, long after Leo gently tugged at her arm. Finally, she took a deep, shuddering breath, the tension releasing in a rush, as if she just remembered how to breathe. Her palms were slick with sweat. The knife slipped from her nerveless fingers, clattering onto the floor. She collapsed next to Leo, burying her face in his chest, and finally let the uncontrollable, racking sobs consume her. Leo held her tightly, fighting waves of nausea and the throbbing pain in his head, gently stroking her hair. "It's okay, Sarah," he murmured over and over. It's over. He's gone. We're okay. We're still alive. Neither of them noticed the single, thin, crimson thread that had appeared in the white of Leo's eye, pulsing faintly before receding again. Day 60 of the mass infection. The remnants of humanity clung to existence in fortified zones the government optimistically called oases. These survivors were the lucky few, the ones who had managed to endure. The military's primary mission now: locate scattered survivors and escort them to the nearest oasis. Meanwhile, deep within hidden research facilities, Project Savior pushed forward. Using prisoners plucked from collapsing penitentiaries across the country, scientists conducted clandestine live experiments. The goal: engineer beings immune to the zombie virus capable of destroying the changed. They warped bodies, edited genes, injected volatile experimental serums, letting mutations run wild. Live subjects were preferred partly because failures could be easily disposed of. To ensure control, they systematically destroyed the subject's consciousness, reducing them to biological weapons. These monsters, officially designated superinfected, were unleashed into the apocalyptic landscape. Despite tens of thousands of prisoners being used, despite round-the-clock experimentation, successful stable results were terrifyingly rare. Yet, before the products could be fully understood or reliably controlled, the government ordered their deployment. Humanity's hope now rested in the hands of monsters. What future could there be? And everyone conveniently ignored the fact that these weapons, these monsters, were once human beings. Sarah expertly kneaded dough, flattened it, sprinkled it with dried meat jerky and shredded cheese salvaged from the warehouse, brushed it with oil, and seasoned it with salt and black pepper. She tucked one of her homemade heating packs into a modified metal box that served as a makeshift oven, slid the pizza inside, closed the lid, and added water to activate the heating element. Several days had passed since the visit from the super-infected, as Leo now called him based on the forum post. Sarah still didn't know if refusing to open the door had been the right decision. Their phones had finally died days ago, severing their last fragile link to the outside world. The city's water supply had also been cut off entirely a few days prior, luckily later than the power, but still a devastating blow. Sarah gazed worriedly out the window. Without water, the plight of any other hidden survivors in the city would be exponentially worse. A large whiteboard hung near the kitchen doorway, meticulously tracking their remaining supplies. Using principles she vaguely remembered from a logistics course, Sarah had calculated minimum daily consumption rates and projected how long they could last. The numbers were dwindling. Their neighborhood was quiet now, eerily so. She didn't know how many survivors might still be hidden nearby, but she knew the number of lurking changed outside their door hadn't decreased. Thank God Leo was here. Without him, the silence, the isolation would have driven her mad long ago. But something else worried her more. Since the superinfected's visit, Leo had been sleeping more and more long stretches of heavy, almost unnaturally deep sleep. Shaking off her unease, Sarah called out cheerfully, "Leo, rise and shine. Food's ready." A muffled groan came from the bedroom. "New sleepy. Pizza." Sarah tempted. "Get it while it's hot or it's all mine." A brief silence, then the rustling sound of clothes. Okay, I'm coming." By the time Leo emerged, rubbing sleep from his eyes, Sarah had retrieved the slightly lopsided pizza from the makeshift oven. She'd even managed to find a few birthday candles and stuck them precariously into the cheesy topping. Carefully, she presented it to him. "Happy birthday. Make a wish." Leo blinked, lung, startled. In the day-to-day struggle for survival, birthdays had become meaningless markers of time he'd completely forgotten. A warmth spread through his chest, unexpected and potent. His eyes grew slightly misty, but he quickly masked it with his usual playful grin. "Seriously, Sarah? Birthday pizza for breakfast? Who celebrates their birthday first thing in the morning?" "You get what you get and you don't get upset," she retorted. "Now make a wish before the candles melt all over it. Candles are precious resources, you know." Leo obediently closed his eyes. Watching his lean face illuminated by the flickering candlelight, Sarah had a sudden fleeting thought. What if the apocalypse had never happened? What would their lives be like? She probably would have sent Leo away the day after the breakup, then locked herself in the house, wallowing in misery for months. If Alex had come crawling back, would she have been weak enough to take him? "Hello? Earth to Sarah." Leo flicked her forehead gently. "It's my birthday, remember? Try to pay attention. Sarah snapped back to the present, rubbing her forehead with a mock glare. Hey, I was paying attention. See, I remembered you used to love pizza. Got up super early to make this monstrosity, probably burned myself multiple times, which I did, by the way, and this is the thanks I get? If you dare complain. She turned to place the pizza carefully on the small table, intending to continue her playful lecture. Sarah. Leo murmured her name softly, his voice suddenly serious. She turned back to face him. They were standing very close. As she looked up, their lips met. Both froze, startled. The air crackled with sudden, unexpected tension. They remained motionless for a heartbeat, eyes locked. Then, a flicker of something new ignited in Leo's gaze. His right hand came up to cup the back of her head, his left arm sliding around her waist, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss. Sarah didn't resist. She closed her eyes, a sigh escaping her lips as she instinctively responded, melting against him. The kiss lasted a long time, leaving Sarah feeling breathless and weak-kneed when they finally drew apart. An awkward silence fell, thick with unspoken emotions. They ate the pizza quietly, acutely aware of each other. Afterwards, they sat side by side on the wide windowsill, watching the changed shuffle aimlessly below, the earlier tension now a palpable connection between them. The weather had become increasingly erratic. 2 days ago, a freak hailstorm had battered the city, some hailstones the size of eggs. Today, however, a fierce red sun blazed in the sky, turning the clouds crimson and pushing the temperature into the unbearable 40s. Even the change seemed sluggish, baked into near immobility by the oppressive heat. If this hadn't happened, Sarah asked quietly, breaking the silence, what would you be doing right now? A flicker of discomfort crossed Leo's face. He ran a hand distractedly through his hair. Actually, the day I came over after you got dumped, I was actually here to say goodbye. He looked away, suddenly finding the decaying streetscape fascinating. Well, not exactly goodbye forever. My flight was scheduled for that afternoon. I got an offer for a program overseas. I decided last minute to reschedule, push it back a day. I was planning to leave the next afternoon. Sarah stared at him, stunned. She hadn't known he was going to leave the country. She realized with a pang of guilt how completely absorbed she'd been in her relationship with Alex, how blind she'd become to everything else, even her closest friend's life plans. Thank you, she whispered, the words catching in her throat, for staying. Day 90 of the mass infection. Humanity was unequivocally losing. If cannot control situation, we will initiate final protocol. Human gene continuation project. The fragmented announcement crackled from the television speaker. Power had inexplicably surged back on earlier that day. Along with surprise, a cold dread seeped into Sarah's heart. Leo immediately plugged his phone in to charge. Sarah unearthed their collection of power banks. As Leo's phone booted up, an official notification popped onto the screen, mirroring the garbled message from the TV. All survivors. Make contact with military forces within the next 3 days. Repeat. Contact is mandatory within 3 days for evacuation. It didn't explicitly state the consequences of failing to comply, but the urgent, almost final tone was unmistakable. They were abandoning the city. Together, Sarah and Leo carefully composed and sent their distress signal, fingers trembling slightly. 3 days. Rescue or abandonment. Their fate hung in the balance. For months they had endured, clinging to hope, waiting for a victory that never came. Day 1 passed in a haze of anxious waiting. Sarah cooked, woke Leo, they ate, sent the signal again, and huddled on the sofa listening to the silence. Day 2 mirrored the first. Wake, cook, eat, send signal, wait. The silence outside felt heavier, more oppressive. Day 3. Sarah woke, cooked. But Leo didn't stir easily. Leo, wake up. We're down to the last barrel of water. The nearly empty warehouse shelves and the crushing silence from the military pressed down on her, despair finally threatening to overwhelm her. No response. Annoyance flared through her fear. Leo, we could be about to die, and you're still sleeping all day? She strode into the bedroom, her frustrated words dying on her lips. Leo was struggling to get out of bed, leaning heavily on the nightstand, his body drenched in sweat despite the cool morning air. He was biting his lower lip so hard it threatened to bleed, trying desperately to stifle any sound. His entire frame racked with violent tremors. His foot slipped and he nearly crashed to the floor. Leo, what's wrong? Don't scare me like this. Sarah rushed forward, catching him just in time. He gasped for breath, his chest heaving before finally managing a faint. I'm okay. She helped him back into bed, hovering anxiously, terrified he was turning or dying or both. But strangely, after that initial terrifying display of agony, he seemed fine, almost normal. After being forced to lie still for half an hour under Sarah's worried gaze, he even looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes and complained, I've been lying here forever. Can I get up and walk around a bit? After cautiously confirming he genuinely seemed okay, Sarah finally relaxed, though a seed of unease remained. Just then the doorbell rang. Sharp, clear, demanding. They both froze, then scrambled upright, exchanging wide-eyed glances. Undiluted joy surged through them. Rescue! Leo mouthed silently. He reached for Sarah's hand, and they practically flew to the door, hearts pounding with hope. A wide grin spread across Leo's face, but even in his excitement, for months of ingrained caution took over. He leaned forward, pressing his eye to the peephole. His smile froze, shattering like glass. Standing outside, bathed in the morning light, was the superinfected, the same one from before. The man opened his mouth as if to speak. Leo yanked Sarah back from the door instantly, shielding her with his body. Crap! It's him. The monster from before. The sky outside was darkening again, storm clouds gathering. No military rescue, just this thing. A suffocating wave of fear washed over them, leaving them trembling. The security door was useless against this creature. Unlocking it would be suicide. How long would it take him to break it down this time? Seconds. Then, just like the first time, the sounds of a struggle erupted outside, guttural roars, tearing sounds followed by an abrupt silence. Had he come to kill the zombies outside their door? A bizarre, illogical thought flickered through Leo's mind. Maybe he's here to save us? When the silence stretched, Leo cautiously peered through the peephole again. The porch was littered with fresh zombie remains, glistening wetly. But the man was gone. A loud clap of thunder echoed, and the heavens opened. Torrential rain began to fall, washing the gore from the doorstep, cleansing the world outside. That night, huddled in Leo's arms, Sarah heard the television crackle one last time before dying completely. Rescue operations now complete. Any remaining must proceed. Designated zones. The signal dissolved into static. So close. They had missed it. Abandoned. Surprisingly, Sarah felt a strange sense of calm descend. Well, she said quietly, her voice flat. Since it's the end, let's go out in style. One last luxury. Leo understood immediately. They heated their very last barrel of water and indulged in the decadent pleasure of a hot bath, washing away the grime and fear, at least for a little while. Afterwards, wrapped in towels, the small apartment filled with steam. Sarah turned to Leo, her voice husky. Leo. She leaned in, kissing him softly. He responded instantly, pulling her close. The night was long, and the world outside faded away. Bang! 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 A frantic, insistent pounding on the door jolted them awake. This is the military rescue unit. Are there survivors inside? Open the door. Even as they sat huddled in the back of the rumbling armored vehicle minutes later, the shock hadn't worn off. It felt surreal, like condemned prisoners, who, having already felt the executioner's blade fall, suddenly found their heads reattached and pardons granted. Whiplash doesn't begin to describe it. After 4 months confined indoors, the outside world was a brutal shock. Wrecked cars littered the streets like discarded toys. Decaying bodies lay sprawled on sidewalks. The air hung thick with the stomach-churning stench of rot and decay. The sheer number of changed shuffling through the ruins far outnumbered any potential survivors. With their primary food source dwindling, they had even begun turning on each other. Burned scars marred buildings, remnants of futile attempts at sterilization. Their rescuers were 3 heavily armed, muscle-bound soldiers. When Sarah and Leo had opened the door, blinking dazedly, the soldiers had stared, their expressions a mixture of confusion and annoyance. One muttered to his companion, loud enough for them to hear, "Special orders for these two? Seriously?" The other soldier cut him off curtly, his face impassive. "Sarah? And Leo supplied." The soldier barely nodded, then unceremoniously bundled them into the armored vehicle like sacks of potatoes. The sound of the engine starting sent the nearby changed into a frenzy. They swarmed towards the vehicle, green light glowing in their vacant eyes, drool dripping from slack jaws, drawn like moths to a flame. Compared to Sarah and Leo, who were clutching each other and trembling uncontrollably, the soldiers were models of hardened composure. The driver let out a low curse. The largest, apparently the leader, simply said, "Showtime." What followed was a terrifying display of controlled violence. Machine guns roared, grenades exploded, a deadly fireworks show unfolding just outside their thin metal shell. Several times, change swarmed the vehicle, claws scraping against the armor, only to be blasted away. The driver swore repeatedly as he navigated the treacherous path. Amidst their terror, a nagging question grew louder in Sarah and Leo's minds. Why them? Why expend so much effort, risk so much danger to rescue them specifically? After what felt like an eternity but was probably closer to 2 hours, the number of change began to thin. They passed through some kind of invisible barrier and the oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift slightly. The 3 soldiers visibly relaxed. One even turned around and offered them a tight, humorless smile. "Welcome to the oasis. You're safe now." Their faces were pale as ghosts, legs trembling too much to stand properly when the vehicle finally stopped. One of the soldiers let out an audible scoff as they stumbled out. Leo forced himself to stand straighter, defiance flickering in his eyes. They walked for about 5 minutes, following the soldiers towards a massive gate set into a high concrete wall. 2 words were etched into the metal in sleek silver letters: Oasis. For some reason, a shiver of unease traced its way down Leo's spine. The 3 soldiers strode through a smaller side gate first. "New arrivals," one grunted to the bored-looking guards. A guard waved lazily towards a nearby structure. "Standard screening first." The screening involved passing through a series of high-tech scanners and chambers Sarah had never seen before. She went first. Lights flashed, machines hummed. A synthesized voice announced, "Subject clear." Sarah waited on the other side of the final gate, watching Leo anxiously. He stepped into the first scanner. "Subject clear." Second scanner. "Subject clear." He was almost through. He looked towards Sarah, relief starting to soften his features, a smile touching his lips. He stepped into the final archway. "Warning. Superinfected detected. Entry denied. Warning. Superinfected detected. Entry denied." The robotic voice blared, echoing through the entryway. Leo's smile froze, cracking like fragile ice. The soldier who had scoffed earlier stared, eyes wide with disbelief. The lazy guard snapped to attention, grabbing a communication device, his expression suddenly grim. Without a word, the 3 soldiers who had rescued them seized Leo, their grips like iron. They started to drag him away. "No!" Sarah screamed, lunging forward, grabbing onto Leo's arm. "Wait! You've made a mistake. We've been together the whole time. He can't be. He's not one of them. Let him go." A group of heavily armed personnel rushed towards them. One effortlessly peeled Sarah's fingers off Leo's arm, restraining her easily. Ignoring her frantic struggles and desperate cries, they dragged Leo away, disappearing quickly down a sterile white corridor. When Sarah finally calmed down enough to stop fighting, the soldier holding her dragged her unceremoniously through the gate into the oasis proper. She tried several times to break free to run after Leo, but her strength was no match for his. He simply hauled her back each time, his expression one of bored indifference. A month passed within the walls of the oasis. Sarah quickly learned that this sanctuary was primarily populated by the wealthy and influential from the old world, along with those possessing exceptional physical prowess or intellect: soldiers, scientists, engineers. The oasis boasted impressive infrastructure, including hydroponic farms and aquaculture, making it largely self-sufficient. Yet, constant missions were assigned, small teams dispatched regularly into the dangerous world outside. Survival within the oasis wasn't guaranteed. Sarah felt like an anomaly, an outsider. She couldn't shake the feeling that people looked at her with suspicion, sometimes outright hostility. She overheard whispers. "That useless girl, how did she get in? Must have connections." She missed Leo with an aching intensity that brought tears to her eyes nightly. She cried silently in her small assigned bunk, careful not to let anyone see her weakness. During the day, she faced the veiled animosity with a numb resilience. Everything changed the day she impulsively offered to help in the understaffed mess hall. Her cooking, born from passion rather than necessity, was a revelation. Suddenly she had value. She wasn't just that useless girl anymore. She was the girl who could make a bowl of simple noodles taste like home. It wasn't friendship, not really, but it was acceptance. "Sarah, one bowl of jjajangmyeon extra spicy," a gruff voice would call out, and she'd nod, expertly portioning noodles and sauce. Through fragmented conversations over steaming bowls of food, she pieced together the harrowing stories of the other ordinary survivors. Almost all had reached the oasis through unimaginable hardship, witnessing horrors, enduring betrayals, literally climbing over the bodies of loved ones and strangers alike to get here. Even the meekest among them bore the scars of killing, both changed and human, their eyes holding a chilling emptiness when they spoke of it. Yet she also saw hardened veterans, men covered in scars, break down in tears over a bowl of her crossing the bridge noodles, reminded of a life lost forever. Her cooking, perhaps her quiet, unassuming nature, earned her a degree of protection. Linda, a tough-looking woman from one of the elite combat teams, was the first to show her genuine kindness. When not on missions, Linda would pinch Sarah's cheek, saying sadly how much she resembled her younger sister, lost early in the outbreak. Then she'd force a smile and tell Sarah sanitized stories of the outside world. Sarah always added an extra egg to Linda's meals. Then Linda didn't come back from a mission. The official report was brief. Ambushed by a super-infected, torn apart, thrown into a horde of changed. No remains recovered. The oasis population was in constant flux. People died on missions, new survivors arrived. Even the strongest weren't immune. The fear, the hatred directed towards the super-infected was palpable, even greater than the fear of the regular changed. Especially since the government discovered some super-infected had retained their consciousness, becoming unpredictable, uncontrollable entities far more dangerous than mindless monsters. What about Leo? Where was he? What had they done to him? Was he still alive? The thoughts plagued Sarah during every quiet moment. Damn it! Found another super-infected skulking near the perimeter on patrol today. As if the regular freaks weren't enough. The booming voice belonged to Big John, a burly, heavily scarred man, captain of Team 3. "Sarah, need a bowl of that braised pork rice, make it a large." As Sarah quickly prepared his meal, she gathered her courage. "Excuse me, Captain," she asked tentatively, sliding the bowl in front of him. Do you know how someone becomes super-infected?" "Damn researchers cooked him up in a lab supposed to help us fight the Z's." Big John grumbled around a mouthful of rice. "Worked okay at first, supposedly. But lately, some have gone rogue, not following orders." He leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "But the real scary ones ain't even ours. Rumor is some lab in Z country made one that can actually infect other people. Nobody knows how. By the time they figured it out, who knows how many got turned." Seeing Sarah's horrified expression, Big John clapped her awkwardly on the shoulder. "Hey, don't you worry your pretty little head, kid. Most folks infected that way die within a week. Heard even the toughest guys don't last more than 2. Normal folks can't just turn into those monsters that easily, right?" If that was true, then Leo. "Captain Zhang," Sarah asked quickly, her voice tight. "Where did you hear that? Is it reliable?" Big John puffed out his chest proudly. "Official Oasis intel briefing, kiddo. Captain's privilege, you know? We get the inside scoop. Now let me eat before this gets cold." He took another large bite. "Damn, Sarah, you got skills. Haven't tasted anything this good in ages. If it weren't for this damn apocalypse, I'd marry you." "In your dreams, Zhang," sneered a lean, wiry man from Team 1, known for his arrogance and combat prowess. "Way out of your league. What did you say, you pencil-necked punk?" Big John slammed his fist on the table, surging to his feet. The Team 1 member kicked back his stool, fists raised. Within seconds they were brawling, sending tables and chairs flying. Sarah automatically stepped back. Such fights were depressingly common, triggered by the slightest provocation, fueled by stress and trauma. Predictably, a squad of Oasis security personnel arrived swiftly, forcibly separating the 2 men and hauling them away. The remaining occupants of the mess hall barely reacted, accustomed to the daily violence. Sarah sighed wearily and began cleaning up the mess. Suddenly her eyes stung. Tears welled up, hot and unexpected, spilling down her cheeks. One drop, then another, splashing onto the dirty floor. She quickly turned away, pretending to scrub a tabletop, biting her lip hard to stifle the sobs threatening to escape. It was the first time she had cried in front of anyone since arriving at the Oasis. Suddenly, All the lights in the oasis turned flashing red. A piercing siren wailed throughout the compound. Alert! Super-infected intrusion. All personnel proceed to Central Safe Zone immediately. Repeat. All personnel to Central Safe Zone. Compared to a super-infected, even the strongest human fighters, even hordes of regular changed, were insignificant threats. Panic erupted. The mess hall exploded into chaos. Big John and the Team 1 guy, moments ago being dragged away, instantly stopped struggling. Let us go. We gotta get to the safe zone, they yelled. The guards, hearing the alarm, immediately released them and sprinted towards the central sector themselves. Everyone scrambled, pushing and shoving, desperate to reach the heavily fortified central structure, supposedly the only place capable of withstanding a super-infected assault. Faced with overwhelming power, survival instinct trumped everything. Sarah joined the frantic surge. Being small and not particularly fast, she quickly fell behind the main crush of people. The massive steel doors of the Central Safe Zone were agonizingly close. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her arm, yanking her backwards. The person used the momentum to propel themselves forward, stumbling through the doorway just as it began to slide shut. Sarah crashed hard onto the concrete floor, a blinding pain shooting up her already injured ankle. She tried to scramble up, but it was too late. She watched helpless as the thick metal doors sealed shut inches from her face. She recognized the person who had pulled her back. A man who, just yesterday, had complimented her cooking with a shy, hung-ho-hano simple and honest smile. In the oasis, only the strong survive. It was the brutal, unspoken rule. The heavy doors of the Central Safe Zone slammed shut, sealing Sarah's fate, cutting off her last sliver of hope. A few others who hadn't made it inside pounded frantically on the unyielding metal. Then amidst the chaos, Sarah saw something utterly bizarre. The arrogant Team 1 member, the one who had fought with Big John, was sprinting desperately away from the safe zone, back towards the outer perimeter. Why? Confused, terrified, Sarah looked at the desperate, panicked faces of those trapped outside with her, some already turning on each other in their fear. She knew she had to get away from the sealed door. Gritting her teeth against the searing pain in her ankle, she hobbled a few steps towards the outer gate, stumbled and fell, rolling several feet. It happened in an instant. The super-infected were inside the oasis perimeter. She saw them move with terrifying speed, effortlessly snapping the neck of a heavily armed guard. The guard didn't even have time to struggle, his eyes meeting Sarah's for a fleeting second before glazing over with the vacant stare of death. Sarah had seen little death before the oasis, but the sheer brutality unfolding froze her. Fear clamped down, so intense she couldn't even tremble. She clamped a hand over her mouth, stifling a scream. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her. The coppery scent of fresh blood filled the air. Resigned, Sarah closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable. She was useless to the oasis, a burden. She had survived this long by sheer luck. Dying now. It almost felt like a release. They say your life flashes before your eyes at the end. It wasn't true. Her mind was a blank slate, paralyzed by terror. She waited. Seconds stretched. Maybe only a heartbeat passed. But the killing blow never came. Confused, she dared to crack open an eyelid, stealing a glance. Her eyes flew wide open. Standing over her, hand dripping with fresh blood. Someone else's, was Leo. But it wasn't the Leo she knew. His eyes blazed with that terrifying network of crimson veins, the pupils constricted to pinpoints. A fresh scar slashed across his cheekbone. He looked like one of them, like the monsters she feared. Seeing him again, the fear was overwhelming, eclipsing even the relief of recognizing him. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Leo's alive. The thought surfaced through the fog of terror, absurdly simple. He's alive. Dying at his hands. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad, she thought hysterically. A small mercy, perhaps. But even that thought couldn't quell the primal terror gripping her. Until Leo met her gaze and slowly, deliberately winked. A flash of the old Leo, the mischievous boy she grew up with, hidden beneath the monstrous exterior. Hesitantly, despite the fear still churning within her, Sarah reached out a trembling hand towards him. Leo scooped her up effortlessly into his arms, as if she weighed nothing. He opened his mouth to speak, but just then the oasis alarms blared again, louder, more insistent. Level 1 defense protocol activated. Lethal force authorized. Level 1 defense protocol activated. Found Sarah. Leo spoke quickly into a small communicator clipped to his collar. requesting immediate extraction. A calm female voice replied instantly through the device, audible even over the sirens. Acknowledged. Proceed to extraction point. Evacuate immediately. Leo broke into a run, carrying Sarah easily, heading towards the outer gate. Behind them, automatic gunfire erupted from turrets atop the central safe zone walls. Sarah, already feeling like a traitor by association, looked back in horror. Big John, who hadn't made it into the safe zone, stared down in disbelief at the multiple bullet holes suddenly blossoming across his chest. He opened his mouth, perhaps to curse or cry out, but only blood spilled forth. He collapsed onto the ground, eyes wide with shock. More gunfire erupted. Within seconds, the area outside the central safe zone was littered with the bodies of the survivors who hadn't made it inside. The Oasis defense system hadn't targeted the super-infected. It had eliminated everyone left outside. Leo was already clear of the main gate, the silver Oasis sign shrinking behind them. Sarah, numb with shock, looked ahead. Waiting for them just outside the perimeter was a group of figures clad in advanced tactical gear. Their faces were grim, determined, and disturbingly familiar. Sarah's breath hitched. Her eyes widened in horrified recognition. Standing amongst them, equipped and ready, was Linda. And several others she recognized, faces of teammates reported killed in action, lost on missions outside the Oasis walls. But their eyes were wrong. Vacant. Their movements were stiff, unnervingly synchronized. As one, they raised their weapons, their voices flat, robotic, chanting in unison. Level 1 defense activated. Eliminate all super-infected targets. Protect the Oasis. Sarah clung to Leo, her mind reeling, a terrible understanding dawning. What was the Oasis? They left the gleaming, deadly facade of the Oasis far behind, but their pace didn't slow. They moved through the ravaged city streets, a silent, determined group. The regular changed milling about either ignored them completely or actively shuffled away, seeming to sense a greater danger. Their destination was a large, nondescript building that looked like an abandoned warehouse but concealed a state-of-the-art laboratory complex. Inside, several other people looked up as they entered. Boss is back. And he brought the lady. A cheerful, chubby young man beamed at Sarah. Hi, sis-in-law. Welcome, sis-in-law. Others chimed in, crowding around curiously. Wow, she's really pretty. Did you guys remember to tell her to close her eyes during the scary parts? Make yourself at home here, sis-in-law, don't be shy. They chattered excitedly, a strange mix of hardened survivors and awkward nerds. These were the super-infected? They seemed surprisingly normal. Sarah looked helplessly at Leo. All right, give her some space, she's probably overwhelmed. A calm female voice cut through the chatter. It belonged to a petite young woman with intelligent eyes who seemed to command effortless respect from the group. Fatty, stop hovering. Leo, Sarah just got out of the Oasis. You should probably explain things. Leo nodded, leading Sarah towards a quieter corner. They rescued me too, Sarah, right after they took me away that day. He began, his voice low and serious. The Oasis. It's not what they pretend it is. It's been around secretly for a long time. Their real goal. He pulled up a file on a nearby tablet, showing her the screen. The title read, Project Eden, Genetic Purity Initiative. Below it, the objective stated, systematic elimination of inferior genetic traits, preservation and propagation of superior human stock. The cold, clinical words sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Sis-in-law probably doesn't know why the change appeared in the first place, right? Fatty interjected eagerly. It was because some crazy fanatics wanted to create new humans. New humans? Sarah echoed, confused. Exactly. Another figure, dressed in a lab coat, stepped forward. Being superior to baseline humans in every physical and cognitive aspect, completely immune to disease and environmental toxins. They believed humanity was flawed, needed upgrading. The zombie virus wasn't the goal. It was a tool. A brutal, large-scale selection mechanism to identify individuals with naturally superior survival traits and genetic resilience. Anyone deemed inferior was expendable, potential test subjects at best. He gestured towards Leo and the others. The super-infected were technically the accidental fulfillment of their new human criteria, but they divide us. Those without consciousness, he shuddered slightly, are weapons controlled by the Oasis government to manage the changed. Those of us who retained our minds, his expression hardened, are a threat to their control. They hunt us, try to destroy us, or wipe our minds. Our group finds survivors, finds others like us, the conscious ones. We hope someday to expose the oasis, maybe even stop them. Sarah felt a dizzying weight settle on her shoulders. This hidden war, this grand conspiracy, it was overwhelming. What can I do? How can I help? Leo looked at her, and for the first time since his transformation, his eyes held the familiar, warm, teasing glint she knew so well. Isn't it obvious? He grinned. You cook, of course. He winked. Even the resistance needs to eat well during the apocalypse.